Amy Lingo. I'm the interim dean here in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Louisville. I thought I would start by sharing a little bit with you about the Nystrand Center for Excellence in Education, which is sponsoring today's panel. The Nystrand Center of Excellence in Education in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Louisville is dedicated to the continual support of educational excellence for all students, made possible through innovative thinking, transformational educator preparation, professional development, and supportive learning environments. The Nystrand Center supports and facilitates education reform through its outstanding special programs and initiatives, strong community partnerships that are really at the heart of our success and serve as an inspiration for those who work so diligently to provide a better education for our children. It is our mission to continue with transformation through collaboration by leading the discussion on education reform, policy, research, and practice. I am happy to introduce to you Dr. Geneva Stark, who is the director of the Nystrand Center of Excellence in Education and a clinical assistant professor in educational leadership, evaluation, and organizational development here in our college. Dr. Stark comes to us from Jefferson County Public Schools, where she most recently served as a diversity, equity, and poverty administrator. Prior to this role, Dr. Stark served in JCPS as a district coordinator and human resource administrator, principal, and assistant principal. In addition, Dr. Stark was a KDE, Kentucky Association of School Administrators Superintendent Fellow, former president of the Kentucky Association of Secondary School Principals, and she is a noted educator, thought leader, and frequent presenter on diversity, equity, inclusion, and implicit bias. Her community leadership is also impressive. She serves on the National Alliance of Black School Educators, Board of Directors, member of the League of Women Voters, NAACP, the National Council of Negro Women, and is the former president of the Greater Louisville Alliance of Black School Educators. Dr. Stark is also a member of Senator Gerald Neal's African American Initiative. She is a volunteer for the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. She holds a PhD in educational leadership and policy from the University of Louisville. She serves as a mentor to students, teachers, support staff, and administrators in JCPS, locally, statewide, and nationally. She is a true champion for education and is looking forward to leveraging her knowledge, experiences as a K-12 educator, collaborator, motivator, team builder, and diversity consultant to focus on taking the Nystrand Center of Excellence in Education to the next level. So may I present to you Dr. Geneva Stark. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lingo. Appreciate that, the opening and also your leadership, and I'm very honored to serve as the director of the Nystrand Center of Excellence in Education at the University of Louisville. And I want to commend the panelists for being here this morning, taking time out of your busy schedule, because right now there's a lot that's going on in our country, in our state, and in our city, because we are dealing with 3 pandemics at this particular time. Not only are we dealing with COVID-19, but we're also dealing with the pandemic of racism and social justice, and also the glaring disparities in our educational institutions. So again, welcome and thank you all for being here this morning. Truly appreciate it. And in the essence of time, because we have a lot to cover this morning and want to be able to allow you the opportunity to be able to reach out to your constituents from across the state. So we have people from all parts of the Commonwealth of Kentucky that's eager to hear what are our educational leaders thinking, how can they help us to move forward? What is their thinking? And so I thought it was an excellent opportunity to be able to hear from the thought leaders, and the leaders in education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to see how can we transform education through innovation. Because many people think about going back. Well, it's not about going back, it's about how do we move forward? And how do we move forward collectively? How do we move forward in a collaborative and innovative way, as well? And so that's what the goal is this morning, to be able to allow the constituents to hear from the education leaders. And so one of the things I would like to do first is for everyone to be able to introduce themselves. You have 2 minutes to do that. And we're going to start with our Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. And Ms. Coleman, we met in Bullitt County while you were on the campaign trail. So I'm happy and it's a pleasure for you to be here this morning. So you're at 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And it was an honor to meet you then, and certainly an honor to be with you again here today. I am actually in my Chief of Staff's office because my 8-month-old is in my office. She was asleep. So if you hear something, that means that she's not asleep anymore. But it's an honor to be with all of you today. I think about the places that education has been in Kentucky, and we certainly have made strides forward. And then I think about how far we have to go. And the team that we have in the Bashir Coleman administration is one that I would put up against any team. The governor and I ran, and he believes in education so much that he picked a classroom teacher to run with him. And so that tells you where Governor Bashir's priorities are. He also appointed me to serve as Secretary of Education and Workforce Development as Lieutenant Governor to be able to help our administration to move forward in these ways. We have the most qualified Board of Education in at the state level in the nation. That really highly qualified board picked our new commissioner, Dr. Jason Glass, who is with us here today, and we snagged him back from Colorado. And then all of you, I'm sure, know Aaron Thompson, his amazing story and the work that he's done around higher education in Kentucky. So we have quite a team assembled, and we are ready and willing to listen and to meet with all of the folks like you who are here today to learn from you and to figure out how we can make this education system work for every single Kentucky child, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their socioeconomic status or any other identifier. All of us want an education to serve. And we have to remember that first and foremost, we are serving the kids in Kentucky, which they are the future of this Commonwealth. And it's with that I would say that I'm honored to be here with all of you today.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I guess the lead-in is to Dr. Aaron Thompson.
Thank you, Dr. Starr. Good to see everybody on the Zoom. The Lieutenant Governor led it off, I think, in a way that I'll just pick up. I think it is important for us to understand that when we talk about education, we're talking about education from a standpoint of looking at what we can do as a collective to get where we need to go. So who I am, as you all know, as an old country boy from Clay County, first generation high school student and college student, deeply believe in all education, public education in particular. I make no bones about really, as the head of higher education, that what little time I have, that I want to push several things. One is I want to push quality education in higher ed, but I'm also going to push quality education across the pipeline, P20 pipeline. I'm going to do that with equity in mind. I'm going to do that focusing on achievement gaps as well as opportunity gaps. I'm going to do that by good measurement, good assessment, knowing, are we creating a continuous improvement model that makes us have a better system long after we're gone. I want to do this by being collaborative with people like Jason Glass and Lieutenant Governor Coleman, but also with Anila Bendabutis and the folk that I represent in higher ed. I think it's important that we not just talk about this. I think it's important that we really put forth a strategic agenda and a strategic plan and assessment plan to make sure we're getting there. It's important that we value teachers. It's important that we value faculty. It's important that we value good, deep curriculum. It's important that we value professional development at all levels. It's also important that we understand that we're in this thing together and that we have to depend on each other to make sure we do it right. I will say this as a way to end at least my introduction. One of the things that I believe, and your center is really focused on this, is that we're not going to get to a point of actually having what I believe to be a way to combat systemic racism, systemic discrimination, institutional discrimination, unless we have a great education system that fosters that. We're not going to get to that place where we need unless we put this into the threads of our system, into our curriculum, into all that we do. So I appreciate all on board here that are with that. We're not going to do it until we get more teachers of color in place. We're not going to do it until we get a system in place where all of us are valued as educators. So Geneva, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And Dr. Jason Glass, and welcome back, to the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Thanks so much, Dr. Stark. I guess I would first request that somebody else follow Aaron Thompson. I don't know that I can follow that, but I'll do my best. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with this incredible panel and to be part of this discussion and conversation. I'm honored to be back in the state. I grew up in Kentucky, but have been away for about 2 decades. So there's been a lot to learn, but there's a tremendous amount of positive energy around education in Kentucky right now. It's going to be an exciting time the next couple of years in education. I'm excited about where we can go, and also building on what the Lieutenant Governor said, I think we've got the right people in place to have an incredible future visioning around education in Kentucky. I think there are 3 incredible pressures or accelerations happening that have been happening for some time, but they really beg us to reconsider and think about how school has to change, how the experience of education has to change. One of those is the interconnectedness of the global economy, and that's just getting faster and faster and faster. And that's going to have an impact on the kinds of jobs that we have in Kentucky now and in the future, and that our students, when they graduate, are going to have to compete for. A second is the ever increasing instant access to content, information, and processing power. It's going to just get faster. The devices that we have already can bring the whole world to your fingertips, and that's only going to become more ubiquitous as time moves forward. And the third is the increasing pressures of automation. Anything that can be done by a machine is going to get replaced by a machine. And so when we think about the largest employment sectors are things like retail, and we already have the technology where you can walk in stores, pull the things you want off the shelf and walk out, or it just comes to your door automatically through drones or whatever the next delivery system that may come. That's going to change and disrupt employment sectors like retail, like transportation, in ways that we can't really even imagine. So if we're not preparing our kids for that kind of future, we're not really preparing our kids for what's to come and really what's already here. So I'm excited about that conversation. I'll end by saying the only kind of transformation in education that matters, and transformation is an overused word when it comes to transformation. We've talked a lot about transformation, and things are not very different, really. The only kind of transformation that matters is, did you transform what the student experienced? Is the student's experience different, and different in a way that genuinely prepares them for that future that they have ahead? Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Dr. Glass. Truly appreciate those words. My president, Dr. Nili Bendapudi at the University of Louisville. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And to echo what everyone else has said, Dr. Stark, I'm thrilled that you put this panel together, and I'm very, very honored to be on this. And Lieutenant Governor Coleman, and you've heard my friend and mentor and leader of higher education, Aaron Thompson, and Dr. Glass. Thank you for your comments. I'll probably pick up on comments that all of them have said, because I was just sitting back listening, because everyone made great points about the future of education and the innovation, the transformation that's desperately needed. I always think that each of us is fighting to improve the world. I do believe that. Every single one of us is saying, how do we leverage the transformative power of education to better individuals' lives, their families, and their communities? So for me, I'll speak a little bit from the University of Louisville perspective. A couple of things that I want people to know is that when we think of transformation, the University of Louisville is one of only 130 or so universities across the world that are now classified as R1, or Carnegie's classification of very, very high research. And I think many of you know that. So I'm aware that part of our responsibility is the research we're doing to make sure that we use best practices to improve higher education. The thing that many of you may not be aware of, though, is that the Education Trust recently did a study of the top 101 public universities. And they looked at what percentage of them have actually more than 10% Black students. And this may shock you or maybe not shock you. It certainly did me, that of the top 101 public universities, highly selective universities in this country, only 2 had populations more than 10% of Black students. We are happy to be one of them, but I think that's not a distinction that I'm terribly proud of. It just shows we are the best of a bad lot. There's so much more to be done. We're also proud that we have one of only 3 universities that has a grade of A in terms of serving both Black and Latina students. But what does it mean to serve them? How do we transform higher education? If I had my druthers, we wouldn't have majors anymore. When students came in, we would ask them, what problems do you want to tackle? Because it's increasingly about putting together those portfolios of skills. So in our school, in our university, we're trying to think about 3 grand challenges that I would like. It's back to Dr. Glass's point, actually, about having every student think about how are you going to empower your communities? That's one big grand challenge we have to face. How are you going to advance health? And by health, we mean physical, mental, spiritual, financial, all ideas of health and well-being. And then how will you help us engineer the future? So whether you're a poet or a philosopher, one little thing we're going to do is every graduate of the University of Louisville in 4 years' time will have at least some micro-credentials in digital technologies. It doesn't matter what you study, you have to be prepared for that. So I'll end with this. When I think about higher education, it's something I speak from my personal experience. How do we look at helping students achieve the good life, however they may define it? How will they make a good living? But above all, how will they be good citizens that help to improve the world, not just for themselves, but we talk about the cardinal community of care. We care about ourselves, we care about one another, and we care about the community within which we are embedded. And so, like in our School of Education, we realize that it's not just higher education. We must start from the time a child is born so that they have the opportunity to fully realize their potential, notwithstanding the zip code that they're born into or the color of their skin. So that's something that we are excited to pursue as part of our anti-racist agenda. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Bendapudi. Truly appreciate it. And my former boss, Dr. Marty Polio, the superintendent of Jefferson County Public Schools.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stark, for having me. Good to see you again. It's always good to see you. And I do want to say, got my EDD, my doctorate from the University of Louisville in 2012, and probably the most meaningful experience educationally for me came in those 3 years at the University of Louisville, getting my doctorate. So very excited to be here with you today and talking about something that I'm very passionate about, which is transforming education. And I think it is more imperative than ever that we do this. And so as we are in this pandemic right now, I do believe this, and I've challenged our leaders. I see some of our leaders on this call right now, but in any crisis becomes opportunity. So we have opportunity here. And so we've talked about change in education for decades. We've talked about it. But really what we've done is tinkered around the edges. And if we really think about it, if we really look to what we are doing right now in education across this nation and probably across the world, but we'll just focus on this nation. You know, I graduated from high school in 1989. So I was a product of an education of the 80s. And so if we think back to that, how much has truly changed in education? Yeah, the technology is different. Kids may be using different types of technology. The film strip isn't there anymore. That was when I was in school, the VCR, things like that. But really the experience of the children is not the same. As Dr. Glass was talking about, what type of experience are kids having? And if we really dig into the experience of what happened in 1980s and 70s and 60s and now, is really not that different. And so here is, you know, we are expecting to have different results without making major changes. And the resistors to change in education are extremely strong, and it's very difficult. And so we are passionate here in JCPS, as most people are in this call, about eliminating the achievement gap and tackling the tough things. And I want a surreal experience I had a couple of years ago. We're a part of an organization called the Council of the Great City Schools, top 76 school districts in America by enrollment. JCPS is about 29th in that ranking. And I'm on a committee, a task force for achievement for Black boys and Black girls. It became about both. It started for Black males, but it moved into females as well. And I was sitting there with 76 superintendents across America in the largest school districts. And for about 4 hours, we talked about the problem. But we realized after 4 hours, no one had any solution to the problem of how we could significantly tackle the achievement gap in this country. And I walked away from there thinking it's because we're thinking in the same paradigm, the same experience that kids have, the same curriculum, the same way we grade students, the same expectation of the amount of minutes that somebody should be sitting in a seat in a classroom. And we could go through all of these things. So I've become very passionate that if we expect different results, we must do things very differently. My passion in change when I was at the University of Louisville became around grading. And that's a perfect example. I believe the way we grade students is one of the most inequitable things that we do that impacts students with the achievement gap. But when you try to make change around grading practices, it's one of the most difficult things to do because of the resistance to change. And so this is our opportunity. With the pandemic that we are facing right now, as we begin to build back, we must have these critical conversations. If we expect outcomes to change, we must do everything differently than we've done before. Not just a few things, not small changes, but massive changes to our education system. We have to look back 30 years and say, well, we really changed the way we do things if we expect different results. If not, 30 years from now, we will be tackling the same problems and asking the same questions and wondering why we haven't gotten different results with our students. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Polio, and Dr. Chris Williams, who's the Chancellor of the Kentucky Community College System. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here today with all these partners. You know, these are folks, it's just a real pleasure to be here with them on the air, the Lieutenant Governor, President Bendapudi, President Thompson, Commissioner Glass, and the rest, but also to know that we and our staffs work together all the time to try to really have that P20 system to meet the needs of anyone in the Commonwealth who is in school, preparing for work, already working to help all of us move forward as people are successful and, you know, successful as employees, successful as citizens, successful as entrepreneurs. It's just a real privilege to be here today to represent our 16 colleges spread out across the Commonwealth. We have a location within about 30 minutes of everybody to drive to, but certainly we also have a very robust online presence and simulation presence that's been put to the test over these last few months. So we're really focused on how do we stay very relevant, keep our programs very relevant, and be sure that we're working with our employers, our school partners as the largest providers of dual credit offerings and the largest workforce development providers in the Commonwealth. We know that higher ed matters. We're right there with the Council on Post-Secondary Education. We know that each student who comes and gets a short-term certificate or a diploma or a degree has the capability and capacity to earn more money over their lifetime. We really love partnering with the University of Louisville and are very excited about two new partnerships, one on apprenticeships and one on cybersecurity. We just are we're very strongly focused on ensuring that anybody can walk up to our doors and find a place in our institution and find a way to move themselves forward with our higher education. And so again, it's a real pleasure to be here today to learn from the other panelists, but also to share some of the things that we're doing to accelerate our student success and close those achievement gaps. So Dr. Stark, thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you for being here this morning. And at the end of our presentation this morning, we're going to have a brief demonstration of virtual reality, something that's innovative. And we have Chris Masden that's going to introduce himself, and then Shannon Putnam.
Great, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. So I have about 20 years of experience in behavioral science, and it was back in 2013 that I had my first social VR experience, putting on a headset, stepping into a virtual environment, having the developer of that platform step towards me and suddenly find myself stepping 2 steps back because suddenly personal space bubbles matter in a virtual environment in which you feel entirely present. So I pulled off the headset and told my wife that night that I was making a serious shift in my career and jumped both feet fully into virtual reality. I work for a company called Immersive VR Education, and we specialize in creating educational content, communication, and collaboration, multi-user in virtual reality, where everything is possible. And not only can we be in any experience, but we can share those experiences together, a teacher to an entire classroom full of kids, where you can move beyond passive learning experiences and move to experiential learning. I had a few years working for an avatar company, because when you're in a virtual reality, you have to have a body in order to interact with each other. So I spent a couple of years developing a patent with a fantastic team of how to carry your identity from one virtual location to another and maintain who we are when we're in those virtual environments, and enabling that ability to reach out and shake your students' hands and interact within that environment as though it was real. You know, your brain interprets it as real. So the possibilities are endless. And I'll tell you, COVID has accelerated everything far beyond my expectations. And all of us in this field are scrambling to make this a seamless, friction-free experience as the need continues to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Truly appreciate it. And we have Shannon Putnam, who is she's going to introduce herself.
Yes, hello, and thank you, everybody. I feel honored just to be in the room with everybody. I am a graduate research assistant and PhD student here at U of L. I was a 13-year JCPS employee, proud member at 500 West Gilbert, Bill Cochran Elementary. And I've been using VR for about 6-7 years. And what's exciting about this is to showcase what U of L and JCPS are doing. And when I say that they're really taking this and running it, and everybody's been talking about how we actually need to make a change and not just talk about a change, they're actually doing it because some of the technology that you're going to see today is bleeding edge. And the way that we are implementing this technology at U of L and JCPS, people are not doing it yet. We are some of the first people in the country and even internationally to be doing it to the level that we are doing it. So we're excited to share it with everybody, and hopefully we'll get to see some people in virtual reality as well. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Okay. Hey, thank you all for being here. And we're going to just dive into the questions. And this is the one question for everyone. What is the one thing our community can expect from you in your leadership role? What is the one thing that our community can expect? And again, they are listening from all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we're going to start with Lieutenant Governor Coleman.
Well, thank you so much. I think it would be fair for me to say that the one thing that can be expected from me as Lieutenant Governor, working with Governor Beshear, but also as Secretary of Education and Workforce Development, is to listen. It's something that I'm committed to do. We have lots to learn. We have lots to accomplish. We have a long way to go, and we can't do that individually. And so before we can begin to take steps forward, we certainly have to sit down and do our fair share of listening as we try to craft the way forward and the best opportunities for our kids.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bendapudi, what is the one thing that the Cardinal Land can expect from you?
I think to be collaborative, because these problems are too big for any one individual or even any one organization to tackle. So I think that hopefully in the almost 2.5 years I've been here, that's what they've seen. But beyond our own university, for any of the people that are on the panel today or otherwise, I hope they will say, we can count on U of L and me personally to be very collaborative, because we are all dedicated to the same goal of transforming lives.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Thompson.
You know, our North Star is 60% educational attainment by 2030. And what you can count on me to do is to work toward that North Star strategically, making sure we don't leave anybody behind. We're going to have everybody. We can't leave people of color, low-income people, adult learners. We can't leave them behind. And we're going to have to do this in a very strategic way, not just talk about it. So you can count on me working with our P20 counterparts and our workforce, industry, and business leaders to make that happen. It has to be a lifelong learning into the workplace where we have top quality that no one's left behind. I will not just talk about it. I'll do everything I can to make sure it's a part of our thread.
Thank you very much. Dr. Polio.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll echo obviously what everyone said, but try to go a little bit different direction. First of all, without a doubt, they can always expect passion from me, passion for the kids of this community and passion for improving outcomes for kids. I also want to say, without a doubt, and this is something I've learned in my first couple years doing this, people can expect to hear the truth and transparency from me. And although that may be difficult, and it's difficult sometimes to talk about your own organization and things that need to change, but they can expect to hear that from me, because I think in today's time, we need to spotlight and highlight our challenges, be honest and transparent, and then be open to collaboration about solutions. But there is, without a doubt, they're going to hear that from me as long as I'm in this position.
Thank you very much. Dr. Glass.
Thank you. I think what folks can expect from me is positive change. I reflect on my career and in leadership roles. I've been effective at getting places unstuck and getting places moving toward a better place. I really think that every leader is temporary, and that includes all of us on this call. Our tenures may be longer or shorter, but there's a fuse burning on all of us, and we have an obligation to get as much positive work done in the time that we have with the time that we have. So that's what you can count on me for, is positive change.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. I've already mentioned the power of our current collaborations. So let me add perhaps this focus on the future of work. Our students who have work-based learning experiences while they're in college are better prepared to go to work. They're better prepared to transfer for universities in a career. And so those employer partnerships with employer-based organizations, the workforce innovation boards, the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, our partner institutions like the Kentucky Chamber and the Association, CAM, the Kentucky Association of Manufacturing. These partnerships help improve the outcomes for our students. And so they're one of our primary focus areas.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Glass, there was something called the MERS Scholarship, Minority Educated Recruitment and Retention Program, that was in place for a number of years to increase the number of students of color in education. And that program was abolished a couple of years ago. What is the plan for the future, and with attracting or increasing the number of teachers of color in our education system? And Dr. Glass.
Thank you. Well, that scholarship was a program under a larger umbrella of programs called the Kentucky Academy for Equity in Teaching, which included a number of different initiatives that were aimed at increasing the number of minorities in the educator workforce and improving the diversity of the workforce. So Regrettably, funding has not followed that effort. One of the major initiatives that will be moving forward in this next legislative session is to raise up that whole umbrella of programs again, the Kentucky Academy for Equity in Teaching, and ask for it to be adequately funded where it has a chance at being successful. I don't think that if we look back over the past few years, it was the right effort a few years ago. It's certainly the right effort now. It's a good structure that was put in place before I got here, but I think it's time for us to really consider, can we resource it in a way that it can be effective?
Thank you very much. Lieutenant Governor Coleman, can you respond to that question? What can you do in your role as Lieutenant Governor to increase the number of teachers of color in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
I sure can, thank you. And this is one of our top priorities. As Commissioner Glass just mentioned, the Kentucky Academy for Equity in Teaching exists, but it's gone unfunded or underfunded for far too long. And so as Secretary of Education and Workforce Development, I am committed to making an investment in that program to get it back on its feet, and then requesting that the legislature continue to fund it the way it was supposed to be funded. But I think this is a really important program that if we mean what we say, we need to literally be willing to put our money where our mouth is. And that is a commitment that I'm prepared to make on behalf of Governor Beshear and myself. We're also very interested in how we can collaborate with our universities, with our HBCUs, to make sure that we recruit and are able to retain the best and brightest. It is so important that our kids see for the first, in my opinion, the first leader that they see outside of their home is so often their teacher. And so our kids deserve to see themselves in those leadership roles from an early age. And we know the data just speaks for itself, but the transformational change that creates in an entire generation of kids is something we cannot ignore.
Thank you very much. Dr. Polio, can you speak to the new program that the partnership with U of L regarding the Louisville Teacher Residency Program?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stark. And first of all, let me say this. I mean, we have a crisis on our hands when it comes to teachers of color across this nation, but we also have a crisis on our hand when it comes to a teacher shortage period that I think is only going to be magnified in the next decade to a crisis point if we don't take action nationally. Tough decisions are going to have to be made across this country. And so, you know, I think we need to have very serious discussions about why that is. Why are the amount of students in teacher certification programs declining significantly? I go to scholarship programs now where our best and brightest in JCPS get awarded scholarships, 20 to 30 kids, and they all talk about what they're doing and where they're going next. And it's very rare, if ever, I hear anyone say that they're getting into the teaching profession. And that's heartbreaking. And I understand it as a father, like most fathers, who thinks he has the smartest and most talented daughter on the planet. I often think that I wonder what she says I'm going into teaching. Would I encourage that or would I discourage that? So I think we've got to start from that point right there and say, why in this country is that the case when it comes to the teaching profession? But we also, when JCPS passed our racial equity plan about 18 months ago, we said that right now to have 14% Black teachers and 36% Black students is unacceptable. And the research has become very clear in recent years. It's nearly settled. When students have Black teachers or teachers that look like them, and this should be for all students, my daughter included, Black or white students, that the number of students that graduate and go to college dramatically increases. And so we said in JCPS, we've just got to stop hoping that we get more students who come out of post-secondary programs into JCPS. And really, we were doing a lot of that hoping and going out and recruiting a lot, no doubt about it, but we've got to work on our own. So we partnered with the University of Louisville and started a teacher residency program. And so lots of people in our district, and I'm going to say this, In my time as a principal and a superintendent, there have been so many of former students who have graduated from college come back and say, you know, I really want to be a teacher. I say, what'd you get your degree in? And they got it in something else. Is there anything I can do? Well, you're going to have to go back to school and get your teacher certification program. Well, now with the teacher residency program, we have a great opportunity for young people and veterans, second career, to say, I want to get into teaching, get my certification, but I don't have to go back to school and do that full time and not have a job. So we employ them in our teacher residency program. They go into a high need school. Monday through Thursday, they'll be with a master teacher and be in that classroom. So in high needs classrooms, we'll have multiple adults in there. They'll be learning from a master teacher Monday through Thursday. They'll be taking class on Friday at the University of Louisville. And within 1 year, they'll get a master's degree and a teacher certification. And so right now, you know, we have about 25 out of the 30 candidates in the teacher residency program are Black teachers or teachers of color. So we're very proud of that. But I think we need to do 100 a year in order to mitigate a teacher shortage, number one, and teachers of color, number two. So these are the type of programs that we're going to have to start thinking outside of the box across this nation if we expect to mitigate the problems that I just outlined.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Polio. Another question. Equity and access have been magnified during the pandemic. How might you provide leadership in addressing these matters? And when I say that is that there was an article that was written this past summer, and it outlined that Kentucky was ranked as the 10th worst state, you know, in the country in terms of access to students, where we have 36% of our students without adequate connection, another 27% without devices. You know, how are we addressing that across the Commonwealth? Because we do have individuals that live in rural areas. We do have individuals that live in urban areas that do not have hotspots or access to the internet. So I'm going to pose that question to Dr. Coleman and Dr. Glass. What are we doing to address those issues?
So I can speak to that. When we talk about COVID so often, one thing that I point out is that it has created its own new set of challenges, certainly, but it has magnified old ones that have been hiding in plain sight. And anyone who works in education or who has a kid in the education system can tell you the ways in which we lack equity. We've reached a point now when it comes to technology, it's not a privilege, it's not an option anymore, it's required. We are in a society that continues to become more and more dependent upon it for communication and collaboration and academics. And so we have committed to a short-term and a long-term solution. The short-term solution is deploying hotspots and getting those out to every part of Kentucky as quickly as we can. It doesn't matter, again, if it's urban or rural. This is a challenge for every Kentucky family. And so we want to point out that we started with about 10% of students in Kentucky that lacked a stable connectivity. And we, thanks to the work of the Department of Education and lots of agencies across Kentucky, have actually gotten that number down to 3%. Now, we're still talking about 20,000 students. And so that's not a small number, but we're working towards that in the short term. In the long term, we are currently working with both public and private partners to complete that last mile broadband and to make sure that the people in the most remote areas of Kentucky have access to this connectivity, because as you all know, we've changed the way that we learn, we've changed the way that we work, and we can't afford to leave anybody behind on that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Dr. Glass?
Well, thank you. And I echo what Lieutenant Governor Coleman said. I think we're down to a very small number of students that we don't have, who don't have internet access and don't have a device. I'm not sure what the source was for the statistics that you were citing earlier, but that I think in Kentucky, we've done a good job trying to reach students. Now, that's not to say that the last group of students that we're trying to reach isn't expensive and difficult to get to. That last step is the most expensive group of students to reach in terms of cost and in terms of infrastructure to get to that point. But Kentucky also has decades of investing in infrastructure and education technology. And so that's a capacity that we built upon going into this pandemic. With that said, we have plenty of challenges when it comes to students who are working remotely or under NTI. Most of the districts in the state are offering some kind of in-person instruction, but we have 2 large districts that are not. And increasingly around the state, we should expect districts to get pitched back into NTI experiences as the number of cases in the community continues to grow. They have to quarantine students or staff members. We're not seeing transmissions in schools, but the mere presence of the virus in our communities around the state leads to disruption in schools, and we have to send kids and teachers home for 2 weeks periods of time for these quarantines. So it creates a lot of disruption. All of these experiences exacerbate the inequities that were already present before. And so all the more energy is going to have to be put into identifying students that are struggling or behind, and then intervening and providing supports for them going forward. That's going to be made all the more difficult because at the same time that pressures and needs for our students and on our education systems is going to be at arguably an all-time high. We're going to simultaneously face a potential funding crisis in the current budget year and going forward. And so that's going to be a tremendous challenge that we're going to have to navigate.
Thank you very much. Dr. Aaron Thompson, as we talk about racism, social justice, and also curriculum, what are some of the things that we can do in higher education to address curriculum and what it looks like right now and what it should look like moving forward?
Thank you for that question. If you don't mind, I want to go back and answer another question too, and I'll do it quickly. Since my office is in charge of post-secondary programs like teacher ed programs, I think it's important for us to say that we have research on your questions on how we get more people of color in teaching. There's several, and I'll make it quick because there's a lot to this. First of all, we need to use a weed in program versus a weed out program. I mean, we have enough information shows that the way we weed people out, that has a huge effect on people of color when it comes to teacher prep programs. We can use our dual credit. We can use a variety of ways to put people into a pipeline. We can change, and this is going to your question now, we have to change the way that we've got the curriculum set up in our teacher prep programs because they don't look a lot different than they did before. Even though we have CAPE accreditation, how are we judging what we're doing around cultural competence and cultural responsiveness versus the way we've done it before? How are we using assessment? We've got to start a way of building a clinical experience in the first year to where students know the value of teaching, because they've been told over and over again, there's more money they can make in other places, there's no value to teaching. We've got to be clear and explicit, transparent, even in the money, the time they have, and a variety of other things that we know works. The other thing too is we've got to have districts like JCPS that's willing to hire students early, that's identifying them and getting them. And then for the 3 years that they hire them, giving them some leadership opportunities and professional development opportunities to get where they need to go. And there's a lot more to that, but we know what works and how it works. We can use MERD. All of those things are added items. They're icing on the cake, but it's not the cake. We've got to systematically change the way that we're doing business, both with EPSB and with the CPE and with all of us, with all that we're doing and how we're doing. Okay, that's quickly, even though there's a lot more to that. The thing that I can tell you what we have to do though, if we still have the same curriculum in our educational system offered and done the same way 10 years ago, we're way behind times. We are going to have to figure out exactly how that we move from a teaching paradigm to a learner's paradigm, and a learner's paradigm that's going to have to deal with new immigrants, it's going to have to deal with people of color that they've left behind, going to have to deal with adult learners, andragogy versus pedagogy. It's going to have to do a variety of things. If you want to get rid of systematic racism, put systems in place to do that, like the curriculum has to change at all levels. Faculty development has to change at all levels. Tenure and promotion system has to change at all levels to promote these as a value system proposition, but also as a diversity equity proposition. You learn more from people different from you than people like you. Have we incorporated that in our co-curriculum? Have we incorporated that in our curriculum? Have we incorporated that in hiring faculty and staff with that in mind as an entry-level proposition to how we hire? So and there's a whole lot more to that, Geneva, I'll stop there, but the point being is that if racism still exists in our educational system where it shouldn't exist, then we've got to really do a SWOT analysis and find out why. We already know the answers, but we've got to then strategically work to combat those.
And that is the question, what is the action plan? You know, because for many of us, we've been on many committees previously, you know, and the goals, what is going to be the action plan? How do we move forward? Because we have the answers, but how do we put those systems in place to come up with an action plan to move forward?
And I want to add this, CPE, we've done two things. We've created a comprehensive diversity policy that all of our institutions have to buy into, not just in the numbers, but how they're building a culturally competent campus at all levels. How are they building a whole student? That's number one. We put in our performance funding model a diversity equity set of metrics that goes to say that this is a priority we have in the state. Now, I want to just give you some quick numbers about putting it in place. For an example, in the last few years that I've been in this job, overall undergraduate enrollment's down 3%, but we're up 12% in undergraduate enrollment of URN. We're up twice that amount this fall. That's the only category that's up in the state. The other thing too, we have a 17.5% percent increase in overall credentials and of all kinds, from certificates to baccalaureate degrees. We're up 37% with our URN. It depends on what you focus on. It depends on how you focus on it. And it depends on whether or not you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. I mean, in the past, we've talked a lot about it. So your point about how we do this, we've got evidence of how to do it. We just got to put it on steroids if we want to get more of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. And in speaking about that, Dr. Benapudi, you just mentioned that the University of Louisville is want to be one of the premier anti-racist universities. Speak to that. What's the goal and the why and the how you putting those systems in place?
Glad to. When we talk about anti-racist university, to me, every university ought to be anti-racist, because racism is simply, it's many things, obviously, we all know. And but at its core, to me, as an educator, racism at its core is intellectual laziness. It's saying that I will know one trivial fact about you, the color of your skin, a social construct, and I will make all kinds of generalizations about that and extrapolate beyond that. So anti-racism, so if racism is the simple idea that there's inherent superiority or inferiority conferred to you by the color of your skin, anti-racism is the very simple proposition that it does not. And so what we are trying to do at the university is to say, by the way, I don't ask myself, is there racism in our system? Because we know there is. It's in every social system. So how do we now work together to see how we ameliorate its effects? How do we make sure that we make progress beyond that? So I asked at UofL, I can brag because I had nothing to do with this, but for over 20 years, we've had a commission on diversity and racial equality called CODRA, and a commission on the status of women called COSWA. So I asked CODRA to come up with specific areas that we ought to be paying attention to. And of course, a commission, you've been on many commissions, we can provide great reports and nobody looks at it again till 5 years later when you have to provide a report. I don't believe in that. So what I have asked them to do is work side by side. They've identified 4 broad areas. What will we do about faculty, staff, students, and administrators. So 4 broad areas. There's a 5th one, which is a subset of students called trainees, specifically for residents and on the health sciences campus. But if you would bear with me and say it's these 4 broad areas that we really need to take a good hard look and make progress, we have now assigned an administrator to each of those groups. And Dr. Faye Jones, who is our Chief Diversity Officer, reports directly to me. She has someone from her office working with each of these groups. So together, what we hope to do, some of them are low-hanging fruit. I think you know them, I know them. But to create them to be really meaningful, they're going to come up with a timeline and metrics. And they've asked for a little bit of time. So early in 2021, given everything that's going on, we will be putting out those metrics and say we will be measuring ourselves on it, we'll be transparent about it, and we will hold ourselves accountable. I'd like to say 2 other things about this anti-racism agenda. People have asked me, does everybody support it? Have you gotten pushback from legislators? Not at all, because to me, I really believe that we're all better off if every segment of our society has an opportunity to succeed and to thrive. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I'm also trying to model it from my level. So I won't make it too personal, but many of you know, for example, in the ACC, I'm well aware as the only woman and person of color as a president, or at the university, I know there are expectations of me. So everything from my senior leadership team, am I gathering a team that really brings diversity of thought? I want to add to what Dr. Thompson said, and if we have a minute, I'd like to talk about digital divide, which I think is incredibly important and we need to address. So I think the people who benefit from having diversity of faculty in a classroom, and Dr. Polio alluded to it, it is not just the young person of color who desperately needs to see somebody who looks like them to dream that they could do that too. But it's important for our rural populations, for our majority populations to know that they are being educated from many diverse perspectives because employers are looking for that. If you look at business, it's usually ahead of education, unfortunately. We talk a good game, but business sometimes is ahead of this. So that's something that's very important for us to cultivate. And if we have a moment, I won't go there now, Dr. Stark, but I'd love to talk about how in our School of Engineering, how our engineering dean is using such phenomenal ideas to rethink who we bring in rather than weed out. So anyway, all right, I cannot resist. Everybody, this digital divide, 1 year ago today, go look at the top cities that were threatened by automation. And why we are focusing on the Center for Digital Transformation here. It's November 19, if I recall. It was in all the papers. Louisville is one of the top 10 metro areas in the country, a threat for automation, doing away with good paying jobs. So COVID has just accelerated that, but this is important for us to address.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benapudi. Dr. Chris Williams, can you speak about what's happening in the community college systems that regarding race and professional development? What is your role? What is your leadership? What are you doing to combat some of that? What is your conversation to your constituents?
Thank you for that opportunity. We take the opportunity for every individual who comes to us very seriously. If you come to a KCTCS college without a high school diploma, we can help you through adult education and you can take a credit certificate program at the same time. But part of it is helping people understand that that opportunity is available to them. Sometimes I feel like we're the best kept secret here, that if you come to us, we have a space for you. You don't have to have a certain grade point to start with us. You can walk in the door and we will find a way to help you move forward. And so I think one of our opportunities is to talk more about the value that we bring. You know, we have 115 program areas of study. 5 of those are transfer degrees that take you right on up to a 4-year university. So you have a very affordable start. You can be successful in your 3rd year, whoever you are, however you got to KCTCS. And then we have, 110 technical programs, 68 of which are in the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship availability. So anyone can come in and have the tuition covered for those programs of study. And we know that when you graduate from them, you'll make more money and you'll have more opportunities. So part of it for me, I think, alludes back to 2 things that Dr. Thompson has said. One is each of our 16 colleges does have a diversity plan. Each one is in a different region with a different percentages of various populations. Some have a lot of people who are English as a second language, for example. Some might be almost majority minority. Others may have very small minority populations. So each one has a plan to increase the diversity in their students, their faculty, and their staff, and their administrators on their campus based on their community and how they can move forward. But the piece that I think we need to think about in terms of students is that the Council on Post-Secondary Education recently did a report looking at dual credit and how participation in dual credit opportunities can really then speak to the student's ability to succeed in the higher education environment past high school, whether that's a KCTCS college or one of our public universities. And those students, particularly those students of color that were successful in a dual credit class, were retained and were so much more successful. I think a lot of it sometimes is just getting the vision of yourself as a college student. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can take part. And so we have a strong ad hoc committee that works between our KCTCS colleges and our KDE partners that really work on every possible facet of dual credit. And one of the things that they are really working hard on is how do we change the expectation for students of color in our K-12 schools, in our high schools, that they can take dual credit. Too few of them participate, too few enroll. Is that because they don't see themselves as successful? Is it because the counselor is not seeing them in the same light they might see some other student? We don't know that, and we're not making assumptions. We just know that if we can all be on the same path, on the same language, that these students need to move into the dual credit environment, then we feel like we can create a pathway into higher education that takes the student from early on. And with the Kentucky scholarships available, the dual credit scholarship, which covers 2 classes at a university or at KCTCS in the general education or technical classes, but also the Work Ready dual credit scholarships, which allow students who are ready for some technical education program in 9th grade even can take up to 2 classes a year, 8 college credits, over 30 credits, almost half of an associate's degree while they're in high school. So we see that as a really wonderful pathway to bring people along and bring them into the academic realm in a way that perhaps they didn't perceive originally. So our big focus is really threefold, I guess. One is bringing students along through dual credit, but also inviting back adult students who may need to be reskilled or retrained for employment. There's lots of opportunities. You can look at for the adults, for example, if you were interested in being a lineman, we have students who do that right after high school or coming back to the workforce, can make an extraordinary salary after a very short program. Climbing poles is not for everyone. Working with electricity is not for everyone, but it may be a career somebody hasn't thought about. To our Kentucky FAME program, which is a 2-year degree program. It's in partnership with employers. Those employers actually select the students in the program. The students work 24 hours a week. They go to school full-time 2 days a week. They graduate with a 2-year degree that can transfer on to university with some other courses taken. After those 2 years, they've had their tuition covered through scholarships and through employer donations. They make somewhere between $12 and $19 an hour, depending on where they're working and the region that they're working in. They graduate and make $45,000 more a year on average, and they're retained and graduated at 80% rate because of that constant engagement and mentoring between employer, student, and college.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
and the question with that is that how do we educate the community that the opportunities at KCTCS, those opportunities, because many times the community just think that it has to be a 4-year degree and not looking at all the opportunities that's afforded. So what else can we do to educate the community of the opportunities available, in the community college system?
Well, we do a lot. We try very hard to market. We have a lot of folks, recruiters, and our faculty out in the community. We hope that our graduates are being ambassadors, although many do go on and, end up speaking to their 4-year experience, perhaps more than their 2-year experience. I really appreciate that Lieutenant Governor Coleman and President Thompson have really focused on sort of that, cradle to career full pathway, so that they are talking about and their staff are talking about all of the opportunities and all of the ways to move forward. I mean, KCTCS is an extraordinary way to have an affordable higher education. Our 2 years at our institutions, graduating with your associate degree, it transfers right on to the university. We have a lot of very strong transfer agreements, so it's not like you're going to lose credits unless you've just taken some pretty weird credit pathways, on your own. And you've paid a lot less. And then we know through research that in your 3rd year at that university, you're probably going to be more successful than that institution's own students. So I think we have to essentially, create our own cadre of storytellers. It's hard to compete with all of the media marketing that's out there. Southern New Hampshire and Phoenix and all of these institutions spend extraordinary numbers of dollars that we do not have for marketing. So our marketing is our story, our one-on-one, our students in the high schools, our representatives and workforce solutions folks in the companies doing incumbent worker training, all of these ways that we're reaching out. But I'll tell you, I'll sign you up. You are welcome to be an ambassador, because we are very proud of what we offer and feel like it's an opportunity for everyone.
Hey, thank you very much. At this time, we're going to have a brief demonstration of VR, virtual reality, with Shannon Putnam and with Steve K. DeSato. And so just stay tuned to be able to experience this virtual reality experience. And as we're speaking about transforming education through innovation, what can we do differently? This virtual reality is an opportunity for us to do something different.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Stark. So we've been very fortunate to have some forward-thinking people in U of L and JCPS, and kind of saw the writing on the wall before COVID hit. And one thing that COVID did show us is that we have not been preparing our students for the digital world. How many students don't know how to log into their own email? They can't get into their Google Classrooms. And these are things that we hadn't been focused on because we're focused on standards and other things. So when we talk about teaching and preparing students for the world they're going to live in, we have to do things differently. They don't know how to open up a tab. Those have to be things that are critical to their education. And one of the things that we're seeing that is happening is virtual reality. And a lot of people think it's this gimmick, but what's happening is in industry and employment, they're seeing the benefits and how it can be used. Companies like UPS, Lowe's, they're all using virtual reality to train employees and to cut costs and to improve safety. And so JCPS and U of L has gotten on board with this, and that's been that's been my focus. And it's been so lucky to have supportive people, because we're already seeing the Zoom fatigue. It's already happened, it's happening, and it's continuing. So we have to do something different. And one of the things I did just want to point out that I also wanted to give credit to JCPS and U of L is preparing for the COVID situation. We have a technology called CleanBox, which uses medical grade UVC light to destroy virus. So all of the equipment that we have is CDC standard sanitary, and that's also going to be something moving forward that we're going to have to consider. So all these little things that we never had to think of before are coming into play. And so what you're going to see is Chris is actually in the program he mentioned, the software Engage. So he's in his headset and he's going to be kind of coming to you live from that. And I'm going to step out and go join him virtually for you guys. So Steve, if you're ready, I think you'll be sharing your screen now.
All right, thank you, Shannon. So yes, let me share my screen so we can get Chris in here. And he is also in Engage, so y'all can hear him. Let me do a couple things. There we go. All right.
Great, great. Can you all hear me on the Zoom side? Stephen, anybody? Can you all hear me on the Zoom side of things?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Well, I understand I have about 10 minutes, so I'm going to move as fast as I possibly can. First of all, welcome to the Engage platform. This allows us to be up to 50 people together in a virtual environment. Thank you, Stephen, for muting my inside mic.
You're welcome.
So I want to show you very quickly how I can bring in 3D objects, because that's what VR is all about, this ability to share in experiences. And we want to make it as friction-free for educators to be rock stars, to bring in 3D environments, to use multimedia and create these very compelling interactive experiences. And let me just show you how easy that is. All I do is go into my tablet here and I can pull out very quickly, say, an elephant. And you can see that just using my hand controllers, I can rotate that elephant around. Let me get right up to you there, Stephen. And, you know, it's really interesting when it comes to the brain of how we perceive experiences. When we have something away from us, we pay somewhat attention to it. But just like in the real world, when something comes within our grasp, our brain kicks into this hyper-aware mode and we notice more details. And it takes it to maximum level when you can simply reach in and grab that object. In fact, when we implemented that ability, I actually asked our tech team if we did something new with our models, because
Chris, I'm so sorry to interrupt. What's the password so I can join you?
Oh, it's 999, Shannon. Come on in. So you can see that it's just so easy to interact. And, you know, if Stephen was in VR, he's actually joining us from a 2D screen. I could hand that to him. He could take that object. So you can see how you can tear apart engines and have these experiences together. Let me show you a quick example of how Colorado State University used some of these 3D objects. Yeah. All right, so they run a veterinary school, and they wanted to bring in the ability to analyze a dog who had a lame leg. How do you identify that? How do you examine the x-rays and walk students through that? So here's what that looks like. Here we go. So here you can see we've got the dog, and you can see that it's walking with some lameness there. And it's the student's job to figure out, you know, which leg is lame, what's going on here. And then you've got these x-rays as well that you can examine. And again, everything is completely shareable. So if I wanted to, for example, grab this bone, I could handle that. And Shannon, come on over.
Yeah,
Let me
maybe you
hand
can
you the
pass it to
bone. I'll show
Shannon.
you how that works collaboratively. There you go. And Shannon, I'm not a doctor. I don't know much about x-rays, but this one, you know, it looks like there's something going on there.
That's awesome.
Cool. So because we're short on time, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this environment because, you know, let's face it, if you're in VR, do you really want to be in a classroom environment when you can be on the surface of the moon or down at the on a seabed somewhere? But before we leave, I just want to show that we can bring your normal tools into the VR experience as well. For example, I can just reach up here and write on the board. Hi, class. That easy, right? You know, do your graphs, pull out your colored markers, you know, show your graphs. It's all very easy. We're going to hop into the next space and I'll show you a little bit how the multimedia and all the other tools work. Bear with me. We're going to make that transfer now.
All right, come on down, everybody. So one thing we wanted to make sure of when we were developing an educational platform is we did not want to dismiss all of the millions of pieces of 2D content that exists out there. So we wanted to make it possible to access things like, YouTube and Vimeo, and share websites, and even share our desktop screen for the class to see. So I can operate on my computer and everybody can see exactly what I'm doing. In this case, we have a web app that stores all of your video links and your web links and all of that. So let me find one that, by the way, we are in the a recreation of the Pompeii Amphitheater, which has been redone to show what it looks like back in the day. Here we go. So I'm going to pull up a video here of Pompeii reconstruction. Let me turn the volume down a little bit. Now, because we're in VR, we're not limited to any one screen. I mean, why be limited when anything is possible? So in that case, I can just, go into my video screen category very easily and just start pulling out screens. Like here's a screen on a cart. Let me turn the volume a little bit here. Great. Here's another screen on a cart. We got, I can make little teeny screens that I can hand to people. Here, Shannon, do you want to take this one as like your little personal iPad? Let me share that with you. Okay, here you go. Or we could even make a screen that fills the entire sky. I mean, we can make this screen 100 feet tall if we want to. Anything is possible. So there's how the media works. Let me go ahead and delete some of these. And of course, you want a web browser when you're doing instructions as well. So let me show you what a web browser looks like. Here we go. I'm going to go back into my media, and I've actually got one stored here. Web links, here we go. How about this one? This is one you should recognize. There you go. It's that easy. I can scroll through the website. I can actually use my virtual tablet. You can't see it because it's invisible to the observer, but I've got this tablet here that allows me to do everything with the web browser that you would expect. So if I wanted to go take a look at the campuses, I just click the button and there we go through the website. So sharing media, very, very easy. All right, let's bring out a little something else. Maybe you want to capture an image off the web to decorate your class with. So let me show you how easy, it's really as easy as just getting a URL to that image, and then you can bring that in as a poster into the virtual environment and decorate as you wish. Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go in, pull down some URLs.
And I think it's important to note too, when Chris says that this is really easy, he means it. We had 2 second graders from Cochran Elementary, Jalen and Jordan Smith. They actually presented in VR in an international conference, and these second graders taught adults how to do exactly what Chris is doing right now.
Yeah, in fact, I'm gonna dare say, Shannon, the kids do it better than I do. They're so creative. So you can see that I've just pulled these images in off the web, and I can scale those images, place them where I want. Maybe I want to put them up as posters. And here's one, Shannon, I got of you when we were doing the little the 360 project. That's a picture of your avatar right there. In fact, yep, you're wearing the same outfit. All right, let me go ahead and delete those. And one thing that's going on in VR right now that's a really big deal, it's called photogrammetry. And why that's such a big deal is because it's so accessible to people. If you haven't one of the latest iPhones, you've got a great 3D scanner on there. I've got a Samsung phone that I can scan with. And the whole point of photogrammetry is bringing real world locations and objects into virtual reality to experience. Let me show you what that looks like. All right. And ungroup. Okay. So in this case here, this is with one of our partners, River. They specialize in doing photogrammetry. This is an Abbey from the UK. And this is a big deal because a lot of folks doing photogrammetry are capturing some of these sites that are being destroyed due to war or for whatever reason, so that we can permanently create copies of those to experience anywhere. And you can see that I can scale that up. And I hope the frame rate's good on Zoom. It's super, super smooth when you're in the experience. And I can even scale that up to life size, which enables us to even just walk inside that experience. Come on in, Stephen. Right? And let's see, I've got another one here as well. Here is a memorial to the unknown soldier, also located in the UK, that they captured with photogrammetry. You can see, I mean, everything that you see here exists in the real world. We've done this with Mars. The Curiosity rovers captured all of those pictures, which have been converted into photogrammetry. So I know when I'm standing on Mars, that pebble that I can get down and look at actually exists on the planet as though I'm there. So when we talk about VR, it really is teleporting our consciousness to a shared digital space.
I think, Chris, while you're loading up something else, I'll just add to that. I mean, the whole point of this is really we're learning spatially, right? And we're providing access to things that fall outside of our paradigm, but we're doing this spatially, right? So we're linking our key critical core senses, which is our hearing, sight, and our touch, or our kinesthetic action. And so we can do these things sort of as we would in the real world, and they're within a realistic facsimile of whatever it is that we're trying to reproduce. It doesn't suggest that we are going to replace real life. It's where appropriate, okay? And so that's one of the benefits of VR. And then you add the social component that we have here with Shannon, Chris, and myself, and now you have that ability to share this realistic experience.
Absolutely. This is data taking from USGS, data of Mount St. Helens. Actually, Shannon brought this in, and we were using this to teach topography, where you could put a topographic map and slide it up and down the 3D model to show exactly how topography works, which is sometimes a hard concept to teach people. But again, you know, this is just data that we were able to import in. I mean, and again, we can scale that up and have some fun with that. Let me show you one other very important feature. It's our recording feature. We can capture everything that we do in virtual reality spatially. So if a teacher wants to record a lesson, they can do that spatially. And then when people consume that content, it feels as though they are there for the original demonstration. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and go into our recording feature now. I'm going to label
While Chris is loading it up, Chris, I'll just describe that. Just a quick parallel. By the way, guys, I just really quickly, I come from 20 years of K-12. So as an educator practitioner myself, like what Chris is going to demonstrate is very much like lecture capture, right? So if you imagine a lecture happening, camera in the back, resources then put onto the LMS for students to rewatch or revisit if they didn't take part in it at all, it's there for them. This is exactly what's going to happen. If you were teaching in VR, Shannon and her students were doing this, and there was students wanted to revisit this, they could. This is exactly like watching a YouTube video, except you're going to see it has volume, it's spatial, and it's pretty interactive, even though it is a recording.
All right, so here we go. I am recording myself right now, and I just wanted to introduce you to this awesome 3D map of Mount St. Helens, which I can manipulate. And welcome to class, everybody. Let's have some fun. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording and save it. I'm going to delete all of my items here, and we'll start fresh, go into my recording, load recording, and select it and play. Here we go.
And there is no audio because he has his mic muted in here, so we weren't getting the double audio with the Zoom presentation, but it would have captured his audio as well.
Absolutely. So there you go. In fact, I'll pause that right now. There we go. So it's that easy. So we did this with Oxford University, where we recorded their lectures and then added all this amazing 3D content around those lectures to make it very compelling and exciting to experience. And lastly, let's go ahead and finish this off, Stephen. I'm going to reload that volcano. Give me one sec. And yeah, here we go.
It's while you're loading that up, Chris, it's funny too,
Please.
like, so I spent time transitioning, faculty from, say, Google Slides to, from PowerPoint to Google Slides, right? And so while those are very similar, it still was a challenge. And so the question is, how easy is this? How difficult is this? It's difficult. But as we move into this type of learning, and there are many reasons why beyond what we're describing here, you would want to use VR and leverage it for assessment and observation, okay? It is a difficult transition, so it is not as easy as bringing in clip art, for those that are familiar with clip art. But once trained, and you find those champions, you're going to find a lot of value in those teachers, like Shannon has found in those that have really picked it up in her school districts.
Stephen, if you want to pop on back up here where I am on the back stairs, I'm just, since we're talking about volcanoes, I just threw this together like literally 10 minutes this morning. It took me to do this. I'm going to take this volcano, since we're in Pompeii, let's enlarge this volcano. Let's throw it out here in the distance so we can see that volcano towering above the city. And very easily, using the existing IFX objects that we have, we can do some pretty fun stuff with that. Like, it looks like that volcano is starting to show a little bit of smoke. And there we go. We'll throw a little fire and flame on there as well.
And this is all being done real time. I'll quickly give the audience a little glimpse as to what Chris is seeing when he's creating these things. So as he's bringing out 3D objects, this is the menu that he sees. On the PC, I'm on a PC, so I have exactly the same controls he has. But if I was to bring out, say, a chicken, right, which is akin to any 3D object he's bringing out there, such as that volcano, it's the same thing, right? So I can bring this chicken out, scale it, and move it through the scene. But those are the tools that he's using to not only interact with the space, but also to moderate the space. So in this particular case, I've muted Chris and Shannon. We can do other things like locking students in their seats if that is something. I come from K-12, so that is something I wish I had in real life, but it's here in VR.
Do we have 90 more seconds? We could hop over real quick to the 360 theater, yes?
I'll wait for an answer.
Yeah. I say go ahead, Chris.
Okay, great.
As we're doing that and we're wrapping it up, 90 seconds, like you said,
Okay,
I think it's important to note that Engage, the software is available on the desktop. So you don't have to have a headset to experience this type of virtual learning. Of course, yes, that is the goal for the highest level of presence, but students can be doing these type of things on those same computers that they're just sitting and watching in Zoom. So that's also a pretty incredible feature.
It's a really good point, Shannon. So like I said, I'm on a desktop, so it's great. We're also on Android mobile. We'll be on iOS beta by the end of the year, and Mac desktop 2D by probably first quarter of next year. Don't quote me on that one though. Uh-oh, did I?
Nope, we are good. Let's just have a little
fun.
fun.
Hold on, Chris. Did the sharing stop, guys?
Oh.
Shannon, did the sharing stop? Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay, let's go ahead and, let's say we want to look at how cars are manufactured. We can actually go to the Hyundai plant. Here we go.
I'll stop the sharing because we're getting ready to wrap up.
Oh, okay. No worries.
No worries.
And I want to thank the committee for being here today. And as we started off with the music, wake up everybody, no more sleeping in bed. We have to look at forward thinking, no more backwards thinking, time to thinking ahead. And I think that was Dr. Aaron Thompson. You said that I stole that out of your your music collection, But again, I thank all of you all for being here today because it is important that the constituents across the Commonwealth of Kentucky hear what the leaders are stating, what they're thinking, and where you're going with this. And so I want to, again, any parting words from anyone that would like to, as we go off, it's 12:57, and I want to honor and respect your time. So any parting words from anyone? I don't want to call anyone's name, but I can.
This is Jacqueline. I'll just hop in and just say thank you. I think these conversations are so valuable. They're so needed. It's an opportunity for us to bring people together. And as mentioned before, our goal is to create that cradle to career pipeline across Kentucky. And that can't happen without conversations like these. So I look forward to hearing and more from all of you and to learning as we listen.
Absolutely. We have to work together collectively in order for this to happen. We need all hands on deck. And so no one entity or institution can do this alone. We need everyone. Dr. Polio, any parting words?
No, just want to say thank you. Great conversation again. I echo what the Lieutenant Governor said. I would just encourage us all. I think that if we want significant change in outcomes, we are going to have to do things differently. And I mean very differently. And so I think we look at all the things that we do in the P20 pipeline and question those and say, are they achieving the goals that we want? Are they increasing inequities that exist in our education system? So I would just encourage us to continue to have these conversations and to look deep into fundamental change. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson?
You know, first of all, I want to thank everybody on this Zoom call. Geneva, I want to thank you and your team for pulling this together. It's what a privilege it is to work with Neela Bendapudi. I just want to tell you that personally. You're talking about quality, that's quality at the level that you want to talk about all the time. It's also good to work with these group of leaders who are dedicated to doing this. As they've heard me say over and over again, as I've heard them say, that the time is now. We got the right group. Let's do it. And so I appreciate the conversation. I look forward to the next strategic process. And Geneva, keep doing the good work there. Amy and all you folk who are at Louisville doing this, know that we are very much on your team, on your side, and we'll be here for you when you need us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And more importantly for everyone, it's about the action. You know, what is going to be the action plan? Because we all have been a part of committees and workshops where there's been documents that are still placed on shelves, but what is going to be the action plan? And we have to be comfortable with people being uncomfortable in terms of moving the needle forward. There's going to be resistance, but we have to look at how do we move forward? And that's what we have to do. And sometimes it's about changing hearts and minds, but we cannot allow that to stop us from moving forward collectively as educators, because that's what our goal is. So we're preparing global citizens. So not just one specific group. So thank you again. And anyone else have any parting words?
Dr. Stark, I just wanted to point out that the Nystrand Center is doing some pretty exciting things, especially collaborating with JCPS. And if anybody wants more information in regards to what we're doing, on that flyer was our social media. They can also email us, and we'd be more than happy to come collaborate and teach some people about VR and what we're doing. So they can reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to talk with anybody. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Glass, Dr. Williams.
Thanks to the University of Louisville for having this.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, we are the change, right? All of us together. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate the partners.
Absolutely. We have to be the change we want to see. So have a great afternoon. And if you all have any questions or concerns, then you all have my information. Then please reach back, and we'll be continue to do the work with you all, as well. Bye-bye.
That's so cool watching
Yes.
her get into it.
Yeah, and lay over there and just to see how it all works.
Great job, Dr. Stark.
Hey, thank you.
Bye-bye. Talk soon.
Okay.